The words were so quiet he almost missed them. Almost. But Sergeant Thomas Wright had spent 7 years in Special Forces before joining the Royal Guard, and those years had taught him to hear what others didn't, to notice what others missed, to trust his instincts when something felt wrong. "It hurts," 2 words, barely a whisper, coming from behind a locked door in the palace's east private wing. Princess Charlotte's voice. Wright stopped mid-step. The corridor was empty, silent except for the distant sound of a vacuum cleaner somewhere on the lower floor. This section of the palace wasn't supposed to have anyone in it right now. The royal children were scheduled to be in their lessons. The Princess of Wales was at an official engagement. Prince William was in meetings all afternoon. So why was Charlotte behind that door? And why did she sound like she was crying? Wright moved closer. The door was solid oak, part of the original palace construction, heavy, built to last centuries. The brass handle gleamed in the afternoon light filtering through the tall windows. Nothing looked wrong. Nothing looked unusual. Except Charlotte was in there, and she'd said it hurts. He knocked. 3 sharp raps. Professional. Controlled. "Princess Charlotte, it's Sergeant Wright. Are you all right?" Silence. Then movement. Footsteps, but not a child's footsteps. These were heavier. Adult footsteps, coming toward the door but not opening it. A woman's voice answered. Not Charlotte's. Older. Clipped. Professional in a way that felt forced. "Everything's fine, Sergeant. The princess is resting. She's not to be disturbed." Wright didn't recognize the voice. That bothered him. No, he knew most of the palace staff, knew their voices, their schedules, their areas of responsibility. This woman wasn't someone he'd encountered before. "Ma'am, I need to verify the princess's well-being. Palace security protocol." "That won't be necessary. I'm her music instructor. We're in the middle of a private lesson." Music instructor. Wright ran through the mental list he kept of Charlotte's schedule. Piano on Tuesday mornings, violin on Thursday afternoons. Today was Wednesday, and Charlotte's lessons didn't happen in the East Wing. They happened in the music room on the ground floor. Something was very wrong. Before we continue with what happened next, make sure you hit that subscribe button on Crown Watch. We share these incredible untold stories from inside the palace and every single day. And drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Now, back to what the guard discovered. Wright's hand moved to his radio. Not obviously, just a subtle shift to his belt. Years of training made the movement automatic, natural. But his finger didn't press the call button yet. Because if this was a legitimate situation, if Charlotte really was just in a lesson with some new instructor, making a scene would create problems. The royals valued their privacy. Their children especially needed protection from unnecessary intrusion. But if this wasn't legitimate, if Charlotte was actually in danger, then every second of delay mattered. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to open this door." "Sergeant, I really don't appreciate your tone. The princess is fine. She's practicing a difficult piece, and she's frustrated. That's all you heard." Children get emotional during lessons. The explanation was smooth, reasonable, delivered with just the right amount of annoyed authority, the kind of tone that made people back down, made them feel like they were overreacting. Wright had heard that tone before. Not here, not at the palace. But during his military service, in situations where someone was hiding something, where someone needed you to believe them so badly that they polished their lies until they shined. "I understand, ma'am, but I still need to verify. Palace security requirements. I'm sure you understand." The footsteps on the other side of the door moved away, not toward the door, to open it, away from it, deeper into the room. Then another sound, muffled, like fabric moving, like something being covered or someone being silenced. Wright's instincts went from concerned to screaming. He pressed his radio. Control, this is Wright. East Wing, 3rd floor, room 347. Request immediate backup. Possible situation involving Princess Charlotte. The response was instant. Backup en route. ETA 3 minutes. What's your status? 3 minutes. A lot could happen in 3 minutes. Stand by. Wright tried the door handle. Locked. Not just closed. Actually locked from the inside. That was unusual. Most interior palace doors didn't lock. Privacy, yes, but not actual locks. This door had been modified. He knocked again, harder this time. Ma'am, I need you to open this door right now, or I will be forced to breach it. You don't have authorization for that, Sergeant. I have authorization to protect members of the royal family. Open the door. There's nothing to protect her from. You're being hysterical. Hysterical. The word hung in the air. It was designed to make him doubt himself, to make him seem irrational, emotional, out of control. Wright wasn't any of those things. He was calculating, assessing, making decisions based on evidence and experience. The evidence: Charlotte was behind a locked door. She'd said it hurts. An unknown woman was preventing access. The explanation didn't match Charlotte's known schedule. The woman was stalling. The experience: 7 years of active duty, 2 years at the palace, dozens of training scenarios specifically about protecting the royal children. Every instinct developed over 9 years of service was telling him the same thing. Charlotte was in danger. Wright stepped back from the door, looked at it properly. Solid oak, yes, but old, historic. The palace maintained these doors carefully, but they weren't designed to withstand a forced breach by someone with military training. The hinges were on the inside. That meant he couldn't remove them. But the lock mechanism was old-fashioned, brass, pre-electronic. It would be sturdy, but it had a weakness. The door frame. Wood could only take so much force before it splintered. He'd done breaching training, knew exactly where to hit, how much force to use. The goal wasn't to break the door itself. The goal was to break the frame where the lock connected. Ma'am, this is your final warning. Open the door, or I'm coming through it. No response. Wright heard something else, though. A small sound. Very quiet. Like someone trying not to cry, but failing. Like a child who was scared, but trying to be brave because that's what she'd been taught. That sound made the decision for him. He took 3 steps back, measured the distance, centered himself, then moved forward fast, shoulder first, all his weight and momentum aimed at the exact point where the lock met the frame. The impact sent pain shooting through his shoulder. The wood held, barely. But he felt it give slightly, felt the frame crack. Sergeant Wright, stop this immediately. He backed up again, hit it harder this time. The crack widened. The wood splintered. One more hit would do it. I'm calling palace security. You're going to lose your position over this. Wright didn't respond, didn't waste breath on words. He backed up a 3rd time, focused everything he had on that one point, and hit the door with everything he had. The frame exploded. Pieces of wood flew inward. The door swung open so hard it bounced off the interior wall, and Wright was through it, moving fast, scanning the room in one sweep. Victorian furniture, high ceilings, windows with heavy curtains, a piano in the corner, music stands, exactly what you'd expect in a palace music room. Except it wasn't a music room. Not really. The instruments were props. Dusty, unused. This room had been set up to look legitimate, but wasn't. And in the center of the room, sitting on a stiff-backed chair, was Princess Charlotte. Her school uniform was wrinkled, her face was blotchy from crying, and her right hand was wrapped in something white. A bandage, but blood was seeping through it. Fresh blood. Standing behind Charlotte was a woman Wright had never seen before. Mid-40s, expensive clothing. The kind of outfit that said money and status. Her hand was on Charlotte's shoulder, not gently, firmly, the kind of grip that kept someone in place. "Sergeant, you've just made a terrible mistake." Wright didn't move deeper into the room yet. He took in the scene, analyzed it. His mind was working fast, sorting details, building a picture of what was happening here. The bandage on Charlotte's hand, the blood, the way Charlotte wasn't moving even though she must have heard the door break. The woman's position behind her, the setup of the room to look legitimate. The way this entire situation had been designed to keep people out and keep Charlotte isolated. "Princess Charlotte, are you hurt?" Charlotte looked up at him. Her eyes were red, puffy. She'd been crying for a while, and in her face was something that broke Wright's heart. Relief. Desperate, overwhelming relief. Like she'd thought no one was coming, like she'd given up hope. "My hand," she whispered. "It hurts so much." The woman behind her tightened her grip on Charlotte's shoulder. "The princess had a minor accident during her lesson. Nothing serious. I was treating it. Your dramatic entrance was completely unnecessary." Wright's eyes never left Charlotte. "Princess, do you want me to help you?" Charlotte nodded. Small movement, barely visible. But it was all Wright needed. He moved fast. 3 steps into the room. Positioned himself between Charlotte and the woman. His body was now a barrier. The woman would have to go through him to get to Charlotte. "Step away from the princess, now." "You're overstepping your authority, Sergeant. Step away, or I'll move you myself." The woman's face changed. The smooth, professional mask cracked. What showed underneath was cold, calculating, and angry. "Do you have any idea who I am?" "Don't know, don't care. Step away from the child." For a moment, Wright thought she might refuse, might force him to physically remove her. He was ready for that, prepared for it. But then she stepped back. Just 1 step, but it was enough. Wright moved to Charlotte's side, knelt down so he was at her eye level. "Princess Charlotte, I'm going to help you. You're safe now. Can you show me your hand?" Charlotte held up her right hand. The bandage was soaked through now. Whatever injury was underneath, it was bad and fresh. This had happened recently, within the last hour maybe. "What happened to your hand?" Charlotte looked at the woman, then back at Wright. She was scared, not just of the injury. She was scared to talk. "It's okay," Wright said quietly. "You can tell me. No one's going to hurt you." She said I needed to practice, to get the fingering right, but I couldn't. I kept making mistakes, and she got angry. She said I wasn't trying hard enough, that I was lazy, that I needed to learn discipline. Wright's blood went cold. He looked at the piano, walked over to it. The lid was closed. He lifted it. The piano strings inside were intact. Normal, but there was blood on some of the keys. Fresh blood. And on the music stand was something that didn't belong. A thin wooden ruler. The kind teachers used to use decades ago for discipline. The kind some people still use to hurt children. Wright turned to look at the woman. His face showed nothing. No anger, no disgust. Nothing. That blank expression was more frightening than any rage. It was the look of someone who had complete control, complete focus, complete intention. "You hit her." "I disciplined her. There's a difference." The princess needs to learn proper technique. Her parents coddle her. Someone has to teach her real discipline. Wright's hand moved to his radio again. "Control, send medical immediately. Princess Charlotte is injured. Also need palace security and metropolitan police. We have a situation." "Acknowledged. Medical is 2 minutes out. Palace security is already en route. Police have been notified." The woman laughed, actually laughed. "You think they'll believe you? I'm Madeline Ashworth. I've been teaching royal children for 15 years. My credentials are impeccable. The Princess of Wales personally approved my hiring. Who do you think they'll believe? A respected music instructor or a guard who just broke down a door and assaulted someone? I didn't assault anyone. Not yet. But who's to say what happened in this room before others arrived? It could easily be your word against mine. Wright looked at Charlotte again. The little girl was shaking now, shock setting in. The injury, the fear, the confrontation. It was all too much for a child her age. He made a decision, pulled out his phone, opened the camera app, started recording. What are you doing? Evidence. Say your name for the recording, please. I will not. That's illegal. You can't record without my permission. Actually, in cases of suspected child abuse, I can. Palace security protocols. So I'll ask again. What's your name? Madeline's face went white. The word abuse changed everything. That word had legal implications, career implications, life implications. This is absurd. I barely touched her. She's being dramatic. Children exaggerate when they want attention. Wright kept recording, moved the camera to Charlotte's hand, the blood-soaked bandage, then to the piano, the blood on the keys, the ruler on the music stand. Princess Charlotte, can you tell me what's happened? Take your time. Charlotte's voice was very small. She said I played the scale wrong, that my fingers weren't positioned correctly. She took the ruler and hit my hand. Hard, multiple times. She said it was how her teacher taught her when she was young, that it was traditional training, that I needed to be tougher. How many times did she hit you? I don't know, maybe 5 or 6. I lost count. It hurt so much I couldn't think. Wright kept the camera steady, kept recording, then turned it to Madeline. Would you like to respond to that? This is entrapment. You're twisting her words, making it sound worse than it was. How many times did you strike the princess? I didn't strike her. I tapped her hand to correct her positioning. With enough force to break skin and cause significant bleeding? She has delicate skin. It was barely any force at all. Wright stopped recording, saved the video, sent it to 3 places: Palace Security, his supervisor, and his personal backup email. The woman watched him do it, watched her future crumble with every digital transfer. Footsteps in the corridor, multiple people running. Help was arriving. Captain Richard Wells burst through the broken doorway first. Palace Security. 20 years of service. He took in the scene instantly. The broken door. Wright standing between Charlotte and the woman. Charlotte's bloodied hand. His expression went hard. What happened here? Sir, Princess Charlotte sustained injuries during an unauthorized lesson with this woman. Evidence suggests intentional harm. I've documented everything, video and photos. The princess requires immediate medical attention. 2 palace medics arrived next. They moved straight to Charlotte. One of them, a woman named Sarah, knelt beside her and began carefully unwrapping the bandage. Hello, Princess. I'm Sarah. I'm going to look at your hand, okay? It might hurt a little when I take this bandage off, but I'll be as gentle as I can. Charlotte nodded, bit her lip, tried not to cry as Sarah slowly peeled away the blood-soaked fabric. What was underneath made Sarah's face go pale. She looked at her colleague, then at Captain Wells. She needs hospital treatment. These are impact wounds, multiple strikes. Some of them are deep enough to need stitches. Wells turned to Madeline. His voice was ice. Don't move. Don't speak. Metropolitan Police are on their way. Until they arrive, you're under palace security detention. You can't detain me. I haven't done anything illegal. You injured a member of the royal family, a child, on palace grounds. We can detain you for quite a lot, actually. More footsteps. These were different, faster, heavier. Someone running with purpose and authority and fear. Princess Kate appeared in the doorway, still in her formal engagement outfit, hair perfect, makeup flawless. But her face showed absolute terror. Someone had called her, told her Charlotte was hurt. She'd left whatever she was doing and rushed straight here. Charlotte, she was across the room in seconds, on her knees beside her daughter, taking in the injury, the blood, the tears. Her own face went from terror to fury in an instant. "Who did this?" Wright spoke before anyone else could. "Ma'am, the woman behind me. She was conducting an unauthorized lesson. She struck Princess Charlotte multiple times with this ruler." He held up the evidence, now sealed in a clear evidence bag Captain Wells had provided. Kate looked at Madeline. The look she gave could have melted steel. This wasn't the composed princess the public saw. This was a mother whose child had been hurt. The royal composure was gone. What remained was pure protective rage. "How dare you? How dare you touch my daughter?" "Your Highness, if you'll just let me explain." "There's nothing to explain. You hurt my child. You struck her hard enough to make her bleed. In what world is that acceptable?" Madeline tried to step forward. Wells blocked her immediately. "Ma'am, stay where you are." Kate turned to Sarah. "How bad is it?" "She'll need stitches, several of them, but there shouldn't be permanent damage if we treat it properly. The wounds are clean, no signs of infection yet. Get her to hospital, now. Use the private entrance. No press, no photos, nothing that could traumatize her more than she already has been." "Yes, ma'am." Kate held Charlotte's good hand, squeezed gently. "Sweetheart, you're going to hospital. They'll fix your hand. I'm coming with you. You're safe now. I promise. No one will ever hurt you again." Charlotte nodded, fresh tears rolling down her face. But these were different tears. Relief tears. Safe tears. As the medics prepared to move Charlotte, Kate turned to Wright. Her expression softened slightly. "You broke down the door?" "Yes, ma'am. I heard the princess in distress. The woman inside refused to allow access. I deemed it necessary to breach. You probably saved her from worse injury. Thank you." "Just doing my duty, ma'am." "No, you did more than duty. Duty would have been waiting for authorization. You made a choice that could have ended your career if you were wrong. Thank you for making it." She followed the medics out. Charlotte looked back once as they carried her through the doorway. Made eye contact with Wright. Mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." Then they were gone. The room suddenly felt very empty, very quiet. Just Wright, Wells, Madeline, and 2 more security personnel who'd arrived as backup. Wells looked at Wright. Full report, everything. Wright walked him through it. The timeline, the conversation through the door, his decision to breach, what he found inside, the video evidence, the physical evidence, everything documented, everything recorded, everything by protocol except the part where he'd broken down a door without explicit authorization. "You took a hell of a risk," Wells said quietly. "If you'd been wrong, if this had been a legitimate lesson, and Charlotte had just been having a tantrum." "I wasn't wrong." "No, you weren't, but you couldn't have known that for certain before you breached." "I knew enough. Charlotte said it hurts. The woman wouldn't let me verify her safety. My training is clear. When in doubt, protect the principal. Sort out the consequences later." Wells nodded slowly. "Some people won't see it that way. Breaking historic palace doors, forcing entry to a private lesson. There's going to be an inquiry." "I understand. But between you and me, you did exactly the right thing, and I'll say that in any inquiry they want to conduct." Metropolitan Police arrived 15 minutes later. Detective Inspector Sarah Chen. Wright knew her from previous palace liaison work. She was professional, thorough, fair. She took his statement first, every detail, recorded it officially. Then she interviewed Wells, the medics, the other security personnel who'd arrived, building a complete picture. Then she approached Madeline, who'd been sitting silently under guard since Kate had left. "Madeline Ashworth?" Yes, I'm Detective Inspector Chen. I'm arresting you on suspicion of assault of a minor and child abuse. You don't have to say anything, but it may harm your defense if you don't mention, when questioned, something you later rely on in court. Anything you say may be given in evidence. Madeline stood. Some of her composure had returned. This is a misunderstanding. I'm a respected teacher. I have references from royal families across Europe. The Princess of Wales approved my hiring herself. Then I'm sure all of that will come out during the investigation. Right now, you need to come with me. They led her out. Wright watched her go. Part of him felt satisfaction. Justice happening. But another part felt something else. Sadness. Because this meant Charlotte had been hurt, had gone through something traumatic, and that was never something to celebrate. Even when the person responsible was caught. Wells put a hand on Wright's shoulder. Go home. Get some rest. There'll be plenty of paperwork tomorrow, but tonight, you've done enough. I'd rather stay, finish documenting everything while it's fresh. That's why you're good at this job. But seriously, go home. That's an order from your commanding officer. Wright nodded, started to leave, then turned back. Sir, how did she get authorized? Security checks should have caught something. She wasn't scheduled, wasn't on the regular staff list. How did she get access to Charlotte? Wells's face went grim. That's a very good question, one I intend to get answered. Now, before we continue with what happened next in the investigation, let us know in the comments. Would you have broken down that door, or would you have waited for authorization? Drop your thoughts below. And if you're not subscribed to Crown Watch yet, hit that button now. We share these incredible stories every single day. Now, let's talk about what the investigation uncovered. The inquiry started the next morning. Not a formal legal inquiry yet. That would come later. This was internal. Palace security trying to understand how Madeline Ashworth had gotten access to Princess Charlotte in the first place. Captain Wells led the investigation personally. He pulled records, interviewed staff, traced every step of Madeline's interaction with the palace over the past 6 weeks. What he found was disturbing. Madeline had been hired 3 months earlier. Her credentials were impeccable on paper. Letters of recommendation from aristocratic families across Europe, a portfolio of successful students. Glowing references that praised her traditional teaching methods and her ability to instill discipline in children. The problem was that several of those references were fabricated. The families existed, the children existed. But when Wells contacted them directly, they'd never heard of Madeline Ashworth. She'd built an elaborate false history. Enough truth mixed with lies to pass initial screening. And she'd had help. We have a problem, Wells told Wright during a briefing 2 days after the incident. Madeline didn't work alone. Someone inside the palace helped her get access. Someone with enough authority to bypass standard security protocols. Who? Still investigating. But whoever it was had access to the scheduling systems. They created false lesson appointments. Made it look like Madeline was authorized to be alone with Charlotte. Made it look legitimate. Wright felt sick. The palace was supposed to be the safest place in Britain. Royal protection was supposed to be impenetrable. But someone inside had deliberately created vulnerabilities. Had given a dangerous person access to a child. Why? What did they get out of it? Money. Madeline paid someone £50,000 to facilitate her access. We found the bank transfers, offshore accounts, carefully hidden, but the forensic accountants tracked them down. Who received the money? Wells looked uncomfortable. That's where it gets complicated. The money went to an account belonging to someone we trusted, someone who had access, someone who should have known better. He handed Wright a folder, opened it. Inside was a photo of a woman Wright recognized, Margaret Hartford, senior palace coordinator, 15 years of service, impeccable record, or so everyone had thought. Hartford? She's been detained, questioned, initially denied everything. But when we showed her the bank records, she broke, admitted to taking the bribe, said she thought Madeline was just a strict teacher, didn't realize she was actually abusing Charlotte. That's no excuse. No, it's not. She's been terminated, arrested, will face criminal charges for corruption and endangering a minor. But the damage is done. Our security system had a hole. Hartford exploited it, and Charlotte paid the price. Wright sat with that information, felt the weight of it. The betrayal. Someone they'd worked alongside had sold out a child for money. How's the princess? Healing. Physically, at least. 10 stitches in her hand. She'll have scars, but the doctors say she'll regain full function. The psychological impact. That'll take longer. Have the press gotten hold of this? Not the details. The official statement says Charlotte sustained a minor injury during a music lesson and is recovering well. No mention of abuse. No mention of Madeline. No mention of the security breach. The family wants to protect Charlotte's privacy. Let her heal without media scrutiny. What about Madeline? Her trial will be public. Eventually, yes. But for now, she's being held without bail. Flight risk. The evidence against her is overwhelming. Her lawyer is already talking about a plea deal to avoid trial. Wright thought about Charlotte, about how brave she'd been, how she'd held herself together even when she was terrified, how she'd tried to protect herself by following the rules, by being polite, by not making a scene, until she couldn't anymore, until the pain was too much, until she'd whispered those two words that had changed everything. It hurts. What happens to me? Wright asked. The inquiry into the breach? Wells smiled. Small smile. Tired but genuine. That inquiry concluded this morning. Finding: your actions were justified under emergency protection protocols. You had reasonable cause to believe Princess Charlotte was in immediate danger. The breach was necessary and proportionate. No disciplinary action recommended. In fact, he handed Wright another document. Official palace letterhead. Wright scanned it quickly. It was a commendation for exceptional service. For putting the safety of a royal family member above personal career considerations. For demonstrating the core values expected of royal protection officers. Princess Anne signed it personally, Wells said. She wanted you to know that your decision to act, to trust your instincts, to prioritize Charlotte's safety over protocol, that's exactly what your role demands. You did what every protection officer should do. You protected. Wright held the letter. It felt heavier than paper should, because it represented something important. Validation, recognition, proof that doing the right thing, even when it was risky, even when it could end your career, even when you weren't sure, that mattered. There's more, Wells continued. Princess Kate wants to see you. Private meeting, tomorrow afternoon. Just you and her. No press, no ceremony. Just a conversation. About what? She didn't say, but I imagine she wants to thank you personally. Mother to the person who protected her child. That's not protocol. That's personal. The next afternoon, Wright found himself in a small private sitting room in the palace. Not a formal stateroom. Something smaller, more comfortable. The kind of room where the family actually spent time. Princess Kate arrived exactly on time. She wore simple clothes, jeans and a sweater, no formal attire, no makeup beyond the basics. This wasn't a royal engagement. This was a mother meeting the man who'd helped her daughter. Sergeant Wright, thank you for coming. Ma'am, please, sit. This isn't formal. I just wanted to talk to you. Away from protocols and officials and paperwork. They sat. Kate took a moment, gathered her thoughts. Charlotte's doing better. Her hand is healing. She's been brave about the stitches, about the pain. But she has nightmares, wakes up scared, doesn't want to go to music lessons anymore, doesn't trust new people. Wright said nothing, just listened. She talks about you, though, The guard who heard her, who came when she needed help, who broke down the door. She feels safe because of you. I'm glad she's recovering. I need you to understand something. Kate's voice was very quiet, very serious. When I got that call, when they told me Charlotte was hurt, that something had happened, I thought the worst, every parent's nightmare, that something terrible had happened and I wasn't there to stop it, that I'd failed to protect my child. She paused, composed herself. But you were there. You heard her. You didn't ignore it. Didn't assume it was nothing. Didn't wait for permission. You acted. And because you acted, Charlotte's injury was limited to her hand. If you'd waited, if you followed standard protocol and requested authorization and waited for approval, she didn't finish the sentence. Didn't need to. Madeline had that ruler, Kate continued. She'd used it before. On other children. The investigation found 7 other families across Europe. 7 other children who'd been hurt by her. Parents who'd been intimidated into silence. Told their children were too soft, needed discipline, traditional methods, and they'd believed her because she was credentialed and respected and knew exactly what to say. Wright felt cold. 7 other families, 7 other children. This had been going on for years. Those families are coming forward now, Kate said. Now that Madeline's been arrested. Now that there's evidence. Now that they know they're not alone. Charlotte won't be the only witness at trial, but she might be the reason those other families found the courage to speak up. She's a brave child. She is. And she learned that from you. From watching you do something brave, even when it was risky. Even when you could have lost your position. You showed her that sometimes the right thing is scary but necessary. That's a powerful lesson for a child. Kate stood. Wright stood with her. I can't give you a public commendation. Can't make a formal statement about what you did. The family wants to keep this private. Protect Charlotte from media attention. But privately, personally, as a mother, thank you. Thank you for hearing my daughter. Thank you for believing her. Thank you for acting. You saved her from something worse. I'll never forget that. She held out her hand. Wright shook it. Brief, firm. More meaningful than any ceremony or medal. As he left the room, as he walked back through the palace corridors, Wright thought about that moment when he'd heard Charlotte's voice. Those 2 quiet words, "It hurts." He thought about his decision to act, to breach that door, to put Charlotte's safety above every other consideration, and he knew he'd make the same choice again, every time, without hesitation, because that's what the job really was, not standing at attention, not marching in formation, not following protocols blindly. It was listening, noticing, trusting your instincts, and acting when someone needed help, even if it meant breaking down doors, even if it meant risking your career. Even if it meant standing against someone with authority and credentials and power. What happened to Madeline Ashworth came out gradually over the following months. The case couldn't be kept completely private once charges were filed. But the palace worked with the courts to protect Charlotte's identity as much as possible. Madeline was charged with 7 counts of assault of a minor, 7 counts of child abuse, multiple counts of fraud related to her false credentials, and 1 count of conspiracy for her arrangement with Margaret Hartford. She pleaded not guilty, claimed she was a traditional educator being persecuted for old-fashioned teaching methods, that children today were too soft, that discipline was necessary for excellence. The jury disagreed. Took them less than 4 hours to convict on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 12 years in prison, called her actions a systematic pattern of abuse disguised as education, said she'd violated the trust of families who'd believed she would nurture their children, not hurt them. Margaret Hartford received 5 years for corruption and endangering a minor, lost her pension, lost her reputation, lost everything she'd built over 15 years of service. All for £50,000. The palace implemented new security protocols, multiple layers of verification for anyone given access to the royal children, background checks that went deeper, reference confirmations that were actually verified, monitoring systems for lessons and appointments. No royal child would ever be alone with someone who hadn't been thoroughly vetted. It was closing the barn door after the horse had bolted. But it was necessary. The system had failed, had to be fixed. Charlotte's hand healed over 3 months. The stitches came out after 2 weeks. The scars faded slowly. She regained full function, like the doctors had predicted. Physically, she recovered completely. The psychological recovery took longer. She started therapy, talked through what had happened, learned coping strategies for the nightmares, slowly rebuilt her trust in people. She went back to music lessons eventually, but with a new teacher, someone Kate personally vetted, someone gentle and patient, someone who understood that Charlotte needed to heal her relationship with music, not just learn technique. Wright saw her occasionally after that, in the corridors, at events. She'd always smile when she saw him, a real smile, genuine. Sometimes she'd wave. Once she even said hello. Small interactions, brief moments, but they mattered, because they showed Charlotte was recovering, was healing, was becoming herself again. 6 months after the incident, Princess Anne called Wright to her office. Another private meeting, no ceremony, just a conversation. "You did well," she told him simply, "not just with the incident, but with everything after. You didn't speak to press, didn't sell your story, didn't try to capitalize on what happened. That discretion matters. The family notices these things." "I was just doing my job, ma'am." "You keep saying that, but it's more than a job. It's a calling. Not everyone understands that, but you do. That's why I'm recommending you for a position with Royal Protection Specialist Unit. More training, more responsibility, more opportunity to use your skills where they matter most." Wright hadn't expected that. The specialist unit was elite, reserved for the most trusted protection officers, the ones who went everywhere with senior royals, who handled the most sensitive situations. "I'm honored, ma'am." "Don't be honored. Be ready. It's demanding work, long hours, high stress. But you've proven you can handle pressure, can make good decisions in bad situations, can put duty above personal interest. That's what we need." She handed him a folder. Training schedule, deployment rotations, specialist qualifications he'd need to complete. "Report to Commander Stevens next Monday. He'll explain everything. Welcome to the unit, Sergeant Wright." As Wright left her office, as he walked through the palace one more time, he thought about how things had changed. How one moment, one decision, one choice to act had altered the trajectory of multiple lives. Charlotte was safer, the system was stronger, a dangerous person was behind bars. Other families had found justice, and he'd found his purpose. Not just as a guard, but as a protector, someone who listened, who noticed, who acted when others hesitated. That's what being a royal guard really meant. Not the uniform, not the pageantry, not the tradition. It meant standing between danger and the people you were sworn to protect. Even when danger looked respectable, even when it had credentials and references and authority, even when acting meant breaking down doors and risking everything. Because some things were more important than protocol, more important than career, more important than safety. Like a child's voice whispering for help. Like 2 quiet words that changed everything. "It hurts," and someone finally heard. We're near the end of this incredible story, but before we finish, we want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make a split-second decision that went against the rules but felt right? Drop your story in the comments. We read every single one. And if this story moved you, if it showed you something about courage and duty you hadn't thought about before, make sure you're subscribed to Crown Watch. We bring you these powerful, emotional, true stories from inside the palace every single day. Tomorrow's story is going to blow your mind. It's about a royal guard who caught someone trying to smuggle something shocking out of the palace right under everyone's noses. You won't want to miss it. Hit subscribe now so you don't. This story, like so many others from inside the palace walls, reminds us that true heroism isn't always about as dramatic rescues or public recognition. Sometimes it's about trusting your instincts when everyone else says you're overreacting. Sometimes it's about believing a child when adults dismiss their pain. Sometimes it's about being willing to face consequences for doing what's right. Sergeant Thomas Wright broke down a door that day. But what he really broke was a pattern of silence. A pattern where authority and credentials protected abusers. Where children's voices were dismissed as exaggeration or tantrum. Where fear of consequences kept good people from acting. He showed that the uniform doesn't make you a hero. The choices do. The willingness to listen when others ignore. To act when others hesitate. To stand up when others back down. And Charlotte learned something that day too. That there are people who will hear you, who will help you, who will come when you call for help. That's a lesson every child deserves to learn. That their voice matters. That their pain is real. That someone will listen. We'll see you in the next story. Until then, stay curious about the hidden stories behind the palace walls, because sometimes the truth is more powerful than any fiction.